Hope you're all well. Today I want to talk about The Last of Us Part 2 Shocker, right? Everyone on the internet wants to chat about this game on the YouTube channel, in the comments of every social media platform ever, and I want to throw a voice into the mix because I was considering doing a more in-depth style review for the game, writing an essay, putting together something quite in-depth, but I feel like the game's just being talked about so much, and there are so many channels that are going to do great essays on this game, and probably already have. I haven't seen many of them, but so many great points are going to be made online. But I don't know. I feel like that's not really my place to do that. I feel like I'm not really going to do the game justice. I think the game is such an impressive feat that I'm never going to be able to do it justice that way. So instead, surprise, surprise, I decided to just add my voice to the endless amount of voices of people discussing this game, because I have an opinion about the game. I beat it a few days ago now. I absolutely love the game. I think it's incredible, and I think it's Naughty Dog. Just once again, like, dude, they do this shit every time. Like, no surprise, Naughty Dog proves that they're the best freaking video game developer around, you know. No one is creating interactive experiences on this level. And I love Naughty Dog games so much, and this game didn't disappoint in that field at all. But yeah, obviously, you know, the game's very divisive, as everyone knows. A lot of conversations and a lot of, you know, just name calling and people saying it's terrible or it's great, and with not a lot of nuance going around, you know. Just kind of, you're in one camp or the other, and we'll shout at each other in the comments like all these things do, and that's just why I hate social media and all these terrible interwebs, you know. I just hate that shit, man. So, you know, I wanted to actually present my opinion, why I feel the way I feel about the game, and I'd love if, whether it's in the comments of this video, in the comments of anywhere on the internet, just to see more actual conversation and deliberation about the game. You know, if you're someone who didn't like the game, I would love to hear more actual reasons why and discussion as to why, because I can understand not liking this game, you know. There's not a world in which I wouldn't like this game. I love the game so much. But I can understand and in some ways see where people would be coming from if they didn't like it. But the fact of the matter is, I would love to hear more of people who've played the game themselves, completed the game themselves, who didn't like it, present why. I would love to see more of that, you know. And not to say that isn't happening. I'm sure it's happening in places on the internet, you know. I'm sure people are having productive conversations about that, but I'm just not seeing it nearly enough, and I'd love to see way more of it. Instead of just name-calling and reducing everything to the most simplest forms of a 0 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10, you know. But I love The Last of Us Part 2, I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to start spoiler-free, just because, even though I feel like so many people know the spoilers at this point, just because so many others on the internet are not considerate at all and are just happy to throw them out there for everyone else, which I think is kind of shocking. I was lucky enough not to be spoiled whatsoever, which was terrific going into the experience blind. And I would never want to ruin it for someone else. So, I'm going to try my best to remain spoiler-free at the start of the video, just to give people who haven't played the game, and if for somehow you've also remained spoiled, like I, remain unspoiled, like me, just give you the chance to maybe get a feel for what I'm trying to say, but naturally, it's going to be difficult to go in depth on exactly what I'm talking about without spoilers. So I'm going to spoil the game towards the end of the video as well, so you can back out before I get there. Yeah, The Last of Us Part 2, you know. What a video game, man. I love The Last of Us, the first game. It's been kind of a favourite story of mine in games for quite some time, and I played it very recently, and I enjoyed the absolute shit out of it, man. I think it's got some of the best gameplay around. I know a lot of people dislike the first game's gameplay, and that's something that doesn't resonate with me at all. I love the gameplay of the first Last of Us. I don't know. I think it does come down to a bit of a Naughty Dog bias for me. I really do love Naughty Dog games, the way they feel, the way they play, that third-person action combat. I think they've just always nailed. And The Last of Us, combining that shit that they've learned from Uncharted and putting it into a much more grounded universe and exploring that through the combat. The stealth systems definitely weren't fully refined. They've taken that shit up so high with the next game, with the sequel, but nonetheless, I really enjoyed the stealth in the first game. I think the shooting and the movement of Joel and all that, I think it's got a really great weight to it that always feel, at least for me, I always feel really in control of Joel. I feel like he's really precise to move. But he's a heavy character, he can't go prone and he's not that mobile, at least nothing on the level that Ellie is in this game. But anyway, I love the first Last of Us, and obviously, everyone's talked about the story of that game a million times. It's got an incredible story, really powerful ending, that leaves you, kind of questioning a lot of things about the game, and I think that the fact the game did that is really special. And obviously the characters, the performances, you know all the shit that people love about the game. I love it all too, So, going into the sequel, I was really excited, and I have to talk about it because I've talked about it for years on this channel, and how could it come out and me not talk about it? So I'm going to do that. I thought the sequel, it's quite different from the first game in a lot of ways. At the end of the day, The Last of Us is a very simple story of Joel and Ellie, their relationship, the way it develops, and it comes to in the end, a very interesting climax that is very hard to predict. But overall, the story throughout the rest of the game is pretty straightforward. It really is just this journey across America with Joel and Ellie. At the end of the day, that's what it is, and they encounter a lot of interesting things along the way, a lot of interesting locations and other characters. But, at its core, the story is pretty straightforward, right? It's easy to describe in a synopsis. The Last of Us Part 2 is not that at all. At its core, I guess it can also be easily described as a revenge quest. Because, okay, I guess that really is what it is at its core. It's a revenge quest. But the way in which Naughty Dog go about kind of trying to execute that is on another level from the first game. They really clearly took upon themselves a great challenge with this game to deliver this story unlike any other video game, and they do that with very specific structural choices and narrative choices and gameplay choices as well. But with this game, Naughty Dog were setting out, I think, to take you, the player, on their journey and to tell you the story they wanted to tell. And it's a crazy story, and it is that very fact itself that they were clearly uncompromising in wanting to deliver the story that they felt was right. And a lot of people hate it, That's where the hate really has started from the game. It comes from the story, and it comes from, I think, there's obviously, not to diminish anyone who dislikes the game, but it comes from, I think, one very specific choice and one very specific moment in the story that people dislike, and then the rest of the issues kind of spring from that, I think. But yeah, that decision itself, that story choice, is something that, just turned a lot of people off immediately, and that's fine. But I think it is that story choice that is really bold, and naturally, obviously, I've heard this counter-argument a lot. Well, just because it's different and just because it's bold doesn't make it good, and I agree 100%. I don't think just because they do something different and shocking that it makes it automatically good. I definitely don't think that at all. But the fact of the matter is, I think playing the game through completion, they completely justify why they made the choice, and it really does pay off in an incredibly powerful way, and it was 100% worth it, I think, and I get if you can't get over it, but yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm trying not to spoil shit, I'm being vague, but yeah, you probably know what I'm talking about if you've been spoiled anyway. But coinciding with all that, they want to tell you their story, they want to create an experience that is meant to make you feel like Spider-Man. No, but in all seriousness, the game is meant to make you feel at its core. That is what it's trying to do. It's trying to make you feel. And when I say feel in a broad sense like that, I just mean it's just meant to make you feel everything. This game made me feel like no other game I've ever played in my life. It just made me feel every friggin' emotion. Name an emotion, okay? I bet it made me feel it at one point in one way or another. It makes me feel it watching the performances, in the cutscenes, in the gameplay. I respond to this game in a way that I've never seen a game do. I've never responded to this an interactive experience like I have this one, and I think that's the case for a lot of people. I think it's the case for everyone who's played it, to be honest, even if you hated it. I think that fact very much remains true, and I think it comes into and plays into how much people care about the characters and care about the story, even if you did hate it. But for me, it worked in a very positive way, I think. Continuing to remain vague about spoilers, I know people are really angry about the fact that the trailers were super misleading, and look, I get it, no one likes to be lied to, no one likes to be manipulated. At the same time, I really don't care. Without saying exactly what, the trailers after playing the game, it's very, very apparent that Naughty Dog went to an effort to manipulate the trailers, went to a great effort to manipulate the trailers, actually. It's not just excluding shots, it's not just leaving shit out and manipulating edits. It's much more than that. They go to a lot of effort to change the trailers, to change the way this game is perceived. But I really liked it. And for me, it preserved the experience, my gameplay experience, in a really great way, where it already left preconceived ideas of where I thought the story was going based on the trailers, and it completely threw them out the window. So you can't trust the trailers, and I like that. I like to be subverted in that way if it's effective, and it was effective for me. But I get why people thought they were getting into a certain experience, and it's actually really not that. But I was totally satisfied with that. I was open-minded in the way of, wow, I did not expect that, but I trust these guys. I trust these developers. I trust Neil Druckmann, and I'm totally on board for the story that I'm about to experience, I'm about to see. And it really worked out in my favour. I'm kind of bouncing around all over the place, so forgive me, but I think it's actually probably the best way to handle it. So, touching a little bit on gameplay, and more at its core, the gameplay pacing, and the pacing of the game in general, because that is another key criticism I see from people who actually played it, which is great. You know, I like to see genuine criticisms. Is pacing issues that the game has, and I understand those criticisms, and I actually felt them at times while playing the game. There are moments that do feel like they go on too long, or they take their sweet old time to get to a certain moment, and it's kind of frustrating in the moment, and I get that. I'm kind of the opinion that I think it's very intentional. I think there is a lot of gameplay sequences, there are a lot of encounters, combat encounters in the game that I do think were a little too long, and I do think there were too many of them, where I'm like, okay, I just really want to get to the next cutscene, like, right now, please get me to the next cutscene, and then there'd be like 3 more fights, and I'd be like, god damn it. But, while I dislike that in the moment, and while I did see it as a pacing issue in the moment, I think, retrospectively, looking at the entire experience, I think it's very deliberate, and very intentional, and it plays into the feeling that Naughty Dog are trying to impose upon you as the player. They want you to feel exhausted playing this game, I think. They want you to be emotionally drained playing this game. And I think letting those sequences go on a little longer actually was quite effective in doing that. Where, towards the end of the game, no spoilers, it was quite important for the story for me to not want to play the game anymore, if this makes any sense. And I did not want to play the game anymore. I was like, no, please God, don't do this. I don't want to play anymore, stop it. And lo and behold, I had to play it more. And I think that was very deliberate. I think Naughty Dog were very much trying to make me not want to play it anymore, make me exhausted by this experience. And they did that job, and guess what? I had to play it more. And it's an incredible feat of, by doing that, by making me feel exhausted in that way, kind of actually put me in the character's shoes in a really clever way. Where that's exactly what the character was probably feeling in that moment, and I was totally on the same wavelength with that character as a result. And it's how Naughty Dog have managed to do this that makes me feel that this game is really a piece of art, and why video games have never really achieved something like this before. You know, even the first Last of Us had a great story, had great characters, but even that, excluding maybe the last scene of the game, never did something like this, where just through pacing choices, through gameplay, made me feel so attached to what's happening in the story. You know, I don't think any video game's ever done that. Normally video games are like, got great gameplay and are really fun and have also got a really interesting story, and those things are just kind of mutually exclusive, but they're great in the ultimate package. This game hybrids and puts together everything to kind of just propel the player through the entire thing and leave you with a certain feeling at the end of it. And I think it's quite special in that way. So yeah, anyway, that's why I get disliking the story, that's why I get disliking the pacing. If this was a game that you were looking forward to just sitting back, not relaxing, because at the end of the day it is still a survival horror game, so you're not really relaxing, but sitting back and just having a fun time playing through a game with zombies and experiencing a cool story, this isn't really that. This is kind of going to a whole nother level of exploration into themes and characters and everything that we haven't really seen in games before, like I said. So in that way, I get why this isn't the kind of, oh, just another cool Last of Us game thing that people were maybe hoping for. Because I myself, I can say all of the time, I wasn't having fun playing the game. And if you want to play games to have fun only, then this probably isn't the game for you, you know. There was a lot of time I was not having fun, there was a lot of time I was shitting my pants, there was a lot of time I was exhausted, there was a lot of time I was bloody sad as shit, you know. And I was happy a lot of the time too. This game was an emotional roller coaster, there's no doubt. So, I was just so on board with that. To see something so different in that way, I was really happy with that. But yeah, you might not be, and that's totally fine. It has been a few days since I beat the game, and that's because I've been kind of processing the thing. The game did leave me kind of shell-shocked in a weird way. And most of the time when credits hit on a game, I'm just like, oh, okay, yeah, cool, that was great. I'm really happy with that. That was really awesome. You know, that's kind of my main thought most of the time. But when the credits hit on this game, I was just like, friggin' staring eyes wide open, just trying to friggin' process this shit, man. And that's, I've heard a lot of people say that about the game, that they do need time to process it. And I certainly did as well. Gameplay, guys, gameplay. The gameplay is phenomenal. I love it so much. And look, it's actually pretty easy to sell you on the gameplay, I think. Just watch like the trailers and watch the gameplay demos they'd already released. They'd released like 3 gameplay demos. There was plenty of it out there prior to the game coming out. Just watch that. If you watch that, that's pretty much what the gameplay's like, and it's a crazy, tense experience, and it is so much fun. I mean, actually, it's not really fun. It's really impressive, and it's really tense, and it's just something. It's really, really smooth and fluid, and the new movement systems that Ellie has now in the game, that have been introduced since the first game. Joel can never go prone. Joel can never dodge. All that kind of shit that Ellie can now do. It really does add a new, faster pace to the combat that wasn't there previously, and it's really, really great. It's awesome. And I still love the shooting. I love it. I think it's really satisfying. There's nothing more satisfying than using the new stealth features and the shooting features to just get some really satisfying gameplay moments where crawling, going prone through areas, enemies being high up, they're close to spotting you, I'd craft a silencer on the spot, get on my back and headshot this dude who was about to spot me with my silenced pistol. Those kind of things happen a lot in the game, those kind of moments, those small moments, and they really add up to creating something really, really amazing and really special. Every time something like that happened where I'd be very close to getting spotted and I'd use all the game's mechanics and features to get the better of the situation in just, you know, a split second of time, right on time, it's really, really great that all the features come together to kind of allow those kind of moments. And I love the crafting and upgrade features. I love them in the first game, and I love them because they're so goddamn simple. The UI is so simple, it's so terrific. I can't stand in modern games the fact that there's so many crafting systems, there's so many upgrade systems, there's so many skill trees, and you gotta go through all the goddamn tabs and shit. It's annoying. You don't even know what you're crafting half the time. You gotta friggin' look up YouTube videos. What is this shit? I love The Last of Us's crafting systems because they're so simple. It's so straightforward. There's like 6, maybe, I can't even remember, but there's like 6 different items you can find in the world that you need to craft shit. You can only carry 3 of them at once at any time. That never changes. And you use those things to choose very carefully what you want to craft, whether it's more ammo, arrows, explosives, health kits, all that kind of shit. You've only got a selection of about 10 things you can choose from, so it's never overbearing, it's never too complicated, and all of those things are essential in different gameplay scenarios and can be used very creatively in the gameplay and the combat. And that's what's so fun about it. Same goes for the upgrade system. There are more upgrade perks this time than in the first game. There are now different trees, but they're not complicated. It's great. There's like, I think there's 5 to 10 trees total in the game, and they've each got 5 perks on them each. And all you have to do is just collect pills in the open world. I was about to say the open world, you know what I mean? In the levels, in the environments. You just have to collect these pills like you do in the first game. And if you have a certain amount of pills, you can just buy a perk. That's it. It's super straightforward. There's not multiple currencies you have to keep track of. I love how simple it is, but all of it benefits the gameplay in a really great way, where every single perk I'd get, I'd be like, okay, this is going to make a difference, you know? All the time you just buy upgrades in games and you're like, I don't really give a shit I don't know when I'm going to use this, you know? But so much of the time, it was really helpful shit, like weapon sway. God, I'm a terrible shot in video games, so any weapon sway perk I could get was really helpful, and improving your health kits and upgrading your max health, all those kind of things. There's way more than that. I did not do them justice, but they're all really great. 2 more things in spoiler-free section. I do dislike the larger environments in Naughty Dog games. They've been pushing in this direction with Uncharted 4 and The Lost Legacy. Both of those games have more open-world sections and larger sections that are less linear, and you kind of have to roam around them for a little bit. There's more of that in this game. I dislike it. It really disrupts the flow of the linear gameplay to me. I love linear games. I'm happy. I don't know, they feel shoehorned into me, like they feel obliged to just do bigger shit, and it doesn't work for me. Larger spaces often make it harder to figure out where you're meant to go. You're given a general direction, but because there's no waypoints, obviously, or anything like that, you just kind of feel a bit lost sometimes in larger levels, and it also makes them harder to loot. I try my best to loot everything, every room I come across. I want to get all that equipment that's going to help me out, and when the levels are larger, when you get to some of those sections, it's like, oh, this is just annoying now. You know, I've got to run all the way over here and back there. It's kind of a pain in the ass. I much prefer when you're just on a linear path and there's a few rooms every now and again. It's pretty straightforward that way. So I do dislike the more open levels. And finally, on spoiler free, the score is terrific. The music is terrific. What did you expect? The best game with terrific music. The score is great. Okay, I'm done with spoiler free now, guys. Let's go into spoilers. Let's spoil the shit out of The Last of Us Part 2. Alright, now that I'm free to talk, I mean, I'll just throw out the main, crazy things about the game that I think a lot of people... the most controversial things about the game, okay? Joel dies in the first 2 hours, which is insane. His death is brutal. The whole scene was absolutely terrific, man. And so well directed, so well done by the actors, obviously. That's this entire game, but the facial capture, everything. Just absolutely phenomenal. It was absolutely devastating, and walking through his house afterwards and kind of sitting with that for a little bit. The game kind of paces itself, so it kind of lets the player think about that for a little bit. Yeah, it really hit home for me. It was really powerful stuff. It was really great. And we get introduced to this Abby character and this group of people that we don't understand. We play as them briefly in the opening section. We play as Abby and we meet them, but we don't really know who they are or what the hell's going on with them. They kill Joel. Cool, that's crazy, like, who are these people? And the thing is, you play as Abby for over half the game. That's the big kind of twist, I guess, in the middle of the game, that you are going on this revenge quest as Ellie, but then randomly, it all kind of comes to a big climactic moment in the middle of the game, and then you end up switching perspectives and replaying the same 3 days you played as Ellie as Abby. And a lot of people have major issues with this, and on some level I get the pacing issues that people have, The game does very much rip you away from that crazy moment in the cinema where where Ellie is confronted with Abby, Jesse is shot in front of you, Tommy is basically, got the gun to his head. This shit's crazy, things are just being dialed up to 11 right now, and then the game cuts away. And we don't get back to that scene because the whole time we're just desperate to find out what the hell is going on in the cinema. We need to get back to this point in time, and the game takes about, I want to say, 8 to 10 hours to get back there, and on that level I get the frustrations, absolutely. Myself, while I was playing the game, I was like, dude, I just want to get back to the cinema, and then when it became clear there was an even longer gameplay section ahead that was going to stand in my way of getting back to that moment, because of the flashback in Abby's perspective, yeah, it was frustrating in the moment for me, absolutely, and I get that. But nonetheless, I think overall, in retrospect, that the time I spent with Abby was necessary for the story to have its full impact, and was necessary for the ending to work the way it does. At least the way it did for me. And sure, you do spend a lot of time with Abby. And it's clear that the intention on Naughty Dog's part is to make you see her perspective and to empathise with her and her situation, what she's been through, and everything like that, the same way we do with Ellie already. For me, it absolutely worked, 100%. And for a lot of people, it isn't working. And that's, understandable. A lot of people just can't get over the fact that this is the psychopath that killed Joel. And, that just wasn't my personal experience with it. Because you clearly see how Abby has been completely destroyed in some way, or how her life has greatly been impacted by her choice to kill Joel. It's strange to kind of paint her as just a cold-blooded psychopath, because I think if you play the game and you still think that, that's interesting to me, because really, we spend so much time with her, we meet her friends, we get a very in-depth look at her life in the WLF, and as a result of all that, We get a really interesting picture of who she is as a person, the guilt she feels, what she's lost as a result of killing Joel. You know, she trained and she was desperate to track down Joel for years after, oh god, I haven't even said this yet, and obviously her entire motivation for killing Joel in the first place, which we didn't know at the start of the game, ties into this greatly. Her dad was obviously the doctor, the surgeon that you kill in the first Last of Us in the ending. I thought that was just terrific. That was just so great. It immediately made me understand Abby. Obviously, I'm not a fan with it. I love Joel so much, but immediately I'm on the same page. I get it, okay? Joel, at the end of the game, of the first game, he made a terrible choice. He murdered these people, and this was his consequence for doing that, right? So I was on the same page with her. I understood the motivation already. So then after that, the next stage is to empathise with her as a person, is to actually find her likeable. And that absolutely was effective for me, to the point where, you know, all the surrounding cast of characters around her and the different relationships and dynamics that she has with all these other people in the WLF, these people that at the start of the game seemed like absolute arseholes. These are the guys that pinned down Joel and killed him and hunted him down and all this. You're like, dude, these guys suck ass. But spending that time with them, you realise, wow, no, they're really not, honestly, you know. When Manny, at the start of the game, he's a character that he spat on Joel, you know, and you're like, holy shit, let's get this guy. But then by the end, when he died, I was like, no, my dude, you know? I was invested in those characters. But my point is, I definitely related and connected with Abby as a person, and the game goes to great lengths to show us that despite completing her mission, despite her revenge being fulfilled and her killing Joel, that it really didn't change anything for her, and if anything, it just made her life a whole lot worse. She still has nightmares of her dad. Her peers now think she's a monster for what she did. You know, we have the whole conversation with Mel, and she's very much still concerned and can't get over the fact of what Abby did to Joel. And she, you know, calls Abby a terrible human being, basically, to her face, and I don't know, that was a pretty, you know, nasty thing, obviously, to say to anyone, and it clearly hit Abby really hard. So she has to live with that now, that kind of reputation amongst her group of friends as a result of what she did. And then at the same time, paralleling to Ellie, of course, the same one that she's experiencing, trying to kill these people because they killed Joel, we see how her constant drive to find and hunt down Joel in the flashbacks, we see how that ruins her personal relationships. You know, she has Owen, someone who's really close to her, someone she cares for, and he cares for her and all this, but at the end of the day, that revenge and her desire to carry it out got in the way of that. And we find in the part where we play as Abby that, great, now their relationship is really strained, and there seems to be not a lot of hope for it left, because Owen has moved on to Mel at that point, you know. So we see the personal and psychological consequences of Abby's actions. And that, to me, coupled with her very strong motivation to kill Joel, made me empathise with her. Definitely not, you know, think that she did the right thing by any means, but those things definitely added up, and I definitely cared for Abby in the end as a result of those. And also, you know, when you play as a character generally and you spend a lot of time with them and you hear their just little dialogue bits and pieces, just literally while you're doing anything in the game, crafting, hunting down enemies, all that kind of stuff. When you spend time with a character in that way in a video game, it's pretty hard, I think anyway, in my experience, not to, in some way, just connect with them naturally because you're spending that time with them. You feel somewhat intimate with them in that way. So those kind of three things kind of work together for me in the story to really connect with Abby. Yes, I had no issue empathising with Abby, and I found it really interesting that the game in a lot of ways is about empathy, and it's about perspective and understanding other people. You know, and some of the time that's pretty on the nose. I think it's pretty on the nose with the whole WLF and Seraphites conflict in the game. How we naturally, you know, we see both sides from Ellie's perspective as just these, holy shit, these guys suck. But we come to see, obviously, from Abby's perspective, the WLF actually seem like pretty cool dudes. When we go to their home base, that was pretty cool. They seem to be living a pretty cool and secure life given the circumstances surrounding them in the world. And then obviously with the Seraphites as well, with Lev and Yara and going to their island, seeing how they live. That clearly changes the player's perspective of the way in which you see these factions and these NPCs. It changes the way you think of them and the way we understand them for the entirety of the game. They're not just nameless, scary enemies. You know, they are people that have their homes and have their families and have their way of life. And I think that's really interesting, and in a way that I don't think I ever could have expected, or anyone could have ever expected. I think because that is such a core theme, being empathy to the game, it's interesting to see how some players can't empathise with Abby as a result of her actions. Not criticising those people, that's totally fine. I think it's just a surprising kind of, I don't know how I'm saying this, like a meta, fourth wall breaking sort of way in which the game is able to project its themes onto the player and see how they respond. The game, through its story and through its characters, is challenging the player to empathise with these different scenarios and different people that you weren't expecting. The fact that some players can't empathise with Abby some way links to exactly what Naughty Dog's purpose for this game was and what they were trying to do. They were trying to reveal, I think, how a lot of the time us humans aren't willing to empathise with different people. And yeah, I don't know, I guess it kind of proves the game's point thematically in an interesting way that is quite deep and I never would have expected from a video game, if that makes sense. And I know I said it before, but I'm not bagging anyone out who didn't empathise with Abby. That's totally fine. I just think it's interesting how that reaction ties into the game's themes in a sort of meta way that seems very intentional on Naughty Dog's part. And the way in which the game does that and kind of acts as a really intricate piece of art and of storytelling is why I love it so much, no matter the response that different people give it, you know, or have to it. Another core reason I think I love the story so much, despite the empathy stuff, which I do really like, is the way in which it explores hate. And, you know, I've seen a lot of people boiling down the story to just saying, revenge is bad, or the game is literally just a commentary of, guys, revenge sucks, and we get it, you know, which, you know, I'm sure at some level, at the very surface, that is what the game is about, really. You know, if you want to look at it that way, that's fine. And I can see why you'd think of it that way, but I do think that is quite a shallow perspective, and I think the game is really about a lot more than that, and it goes a lot deeper than just a commentary on revenge. So, you know, to explain a bit more, at the risk of sounding pretentious, I think the game is actually generally an analysis of hate of any kind. It explores hate, obviously, through Ellie and Abby's quest for vengeance, and what they lose from going on this quest. We see how in the end, which I haven't even talked about the end yet, surprisingly, we see how in the end, Ellie's quest for vengeance leads to absolutely nothing. She loses everything. She loses her new family, she obviously lost Joel, she can't play guitar anymore, which is a really touching thing. Not in a positive way, it's like emotionally resonant, you know. We see how hate drives people to commit horrific actions in the game, with Ellie killing so many people who we retroactively come to care for later in the game. We see, obviously, you know, Alice, oh my god, the freaking German Shepherd. Ellie just kills this German Shepherd earlier in the game and we have no context for it. It's like, okay, we just killed this dog. And then later in the game when we play as Abby, we come to know this German Shepherd, and dude, the second that Alice is introduced to us from Abby's perspective, I could see where this is going. I'm like, oh my god. I see what you've done here. I've already killed this dog in the future, but now I have to do this flashback where I'm spending a lot of time with this dog and I have to really think about what I've already done to it. Because who couldn't care about Alice? But then also the other characters as well, Owen and Mel. I think Owen's a really awesome character. He's super likeable. I love his relationships with the different characters in the WLF. Him obviously being a past Firefly and his desire to seek out the Fireflies again was really interesting. And the way that tied into the ending with Abby doing the same thing with Lev was really cool as well. So to see Ellie, you know, just kill him without knowing who he is or really understanding what's happening, yeah, it really sucked. Especially when we actually got to know him and like him after that had already happened. But it also explores hate by being put, and as the player being put in the shoes of so many other people and so many different perspectives, like I've already said. And obviously you're literally, as the player, put in Abby's shoes. You're forced to play as her for an extensive period of time. But you come to understand all the characters' perspectives, all their motivations, all their ways of life, all their personalities and so on. So when they die or when you kill them in whatever order it takes place, because there is a lot of non-linear storytelling taking place, it's all done very carefully and crafted very carefully in an order in which it's meant to, I think, give the player the strongest response to each individual death or each individual character. You know, like I said, with the Alice thing, with the Manny thing, with Owen dying as well, all those different circumstances occur where you come to care for them after they die. And that just makes you feel even more guilty as a result. And you feel guilty because you realise Ellie and Abby both just have this blind hate towards other people, towards, obviously, you know, Joel and Abby respectively, I guess. In this revenge quest, they have this hate that they can't let go of, and it causes this destruction around them of everyone they love, and everyone that we come to really like as well as the player. Same thing happens with the wolves and the SirCazz and their war, which I really liked as well, and we come to see how it comes all together at the island sequence in the game where there's all-out war breaking out. We run through, you know, the city's burning, the two sides fighting constantly, but watching that town burn and them all just beating the shit out of each other and killing each other and all this, you see how the hate that each of them harbours for the other side, how it just leads to this ultimate destruction for both of them. They both just end up burning in this terrible waste of violence. And that's a direct result from neither of them having empathy or understanding for each other, and instead choosing blind hatred and prejudice. So yeah, anyway, sorry, I think I explained why I like the game's theme so well and how it all plays into the gameplay sections and all that. I think I explained that pretty well. But what I just described has never happened in a video game that I've ever played before, and that is generally just why I really love it. You know, this game isn't just another cool adventure with Joel and Ellie, and I would have liked that, and I think a lot of people would have liked that, but this game is something else, and what it is really surprising, is really different, really impactful, and the fact that I'm able to discuss it in the way I have been discussing it here, I think is a testament to it as a video game, as a piece of art. So with all that in mind, then that links to the ending of the game, the final boss fight, where you play as Ellie and you fight Abby in the water, and it's just, at that point, it is everything that Ellie's been waiting for, to finally kill Abby and end all this. But at that point, you obviously care about both characters, not equally. I think I prefer Ellie, obviously, still, but you don't want Ellie to do this. You don't want her to finish this. You don't want her to kill Abby, and you're forced to take part in this fight. Ellie goes to a new low. She has to threaten Lev's life to get Abby to fight and all this, and seeing the climax of all that, them just beat the living shit out of each other, that final display of violence before Ellie just kind of breaks down, comes to understand everything she's lost as a result of this choice, and she just does the right thing, breaks the cycle of hate that has been occurring between these characters and in the entire game, and between everyone in the entire game, and, you know, just lets Abby leave. And I thought that was really, really powerful stuff, man. Especially when we get the little snippets of the Joel flashbacks. Ellie is still suffering from great PTSD from what happened to Joel, but her kind of realising that this blind hate isn't the right way, and her love for Joel should be, you know, what she kind of carries on, I guess, if that makes any sense. Because we see at the end of the game, she says to Joel that she's willing to try and forgive him. She really struggles to let go of what Joel did at the end of the first game when she finds out about the lie, when she knows about it for sure, but she made the choice that she is willing to try and forgive him and move on, and at the end of the day, that's exactly what she did with Abby as well. That's the lesson she learnt, I think, and yeah, the way it all came to a head, especially with the final moments of the playing of the guitar, was just, you know, heart-wrenching and all that stuff, obviously, but the final shot as well, her walking into the distance with Joel's guitar in focus, everything she's lost, everything she's leaving behind as a result of this journey she's been on. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's so thematically consistent throughout and it really leaves you with something special, I think. I kind of had to sit there for a while naturally at the credits and think about it, and yeah, I was kind of floored by it, honestly. But yeah, no, I love the story of the game so much. And I love the post-credit start screen as well that we get of Catalina Island, where Abby was trying to make it to the Fireflies like Owen, and the fact that the new start screen is of that island with the boat there, that they friggin' made it, man. That was really great as well. Just a really great... Naughty Dog are just masters at doing those kind of things, allowing their narratives to come full circle in a really hopeful way, leaving you on a really powerful note, in a subtle way, because at the end of the day, it's just an image on the start screen, but the amount of hope that is able to give the player, the colours, the vibrancy of the screen compared to what it was previously, and obviously the knowledge of the story that you know now Abby has made it to her destination. The amount in which they're able to pack in emotionally to something as simple as a start screen, it's really special, I think. Alright, apologies for rambling on so long. Hope someone made it this far and gave a crap about what I had to say. But overall, I think I did a fairly okay job at justifying why I really love The Last of Us Part 2. Not that I need to justify my opinion, quote unquote. But yeah, no, like I said at the start, I'd love for there to be any form of interaction in the comments. I'd love to see more conversation, and more debates and more people reviewing the game with fair criticism and more nuance and all that, you know. Just more thoughtful discussion around the game. I want to see more of it. I'd love to see it there, but yeah. Okay, thanks for listening. I'll see you all next time. Do take care, have a great day. Farewell.